You wake up from a dream that leaves you shaken. In it, you were with someone you would never choose in real life. Maybe a stranger, maybe an enemy, maybe even someone of the same sex. The shock lingers. But what if this dream wasn't about desire at all? What if it was your soul trying to speak to you? The symbol behind desire. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and pioneer of analytical psychology, believed dreams were not random. They were messages, crafted by the unconscious mind, wrapped in symbols. Among the most misunderstood of these messages are sexual dreams. Jung argued that they were rarely about literal attraction. Instead, they pointed to something deeper, the human yearning for unity, for reconciliation between opposing forces inside us. Sex, in this symbolic sense, was about union not of bodies, but of the psyche. He once explained that in dreams, intimacy often symbolizes the merging of qualities we lack with those we need to become whole. It was not about who we wanted in bed. It was about who we needed in spirit. A troubling dream, the businessman and his enemy. One story Jung recorded involved a successful businessman. Outwardly confident, respected, and wealthy, this man confessed to Jung a dream that left him horrified. He had dreamed of a sexual encounter with his professional rival, a man he despised. The businessman was ashamed. He insisted this dream must mean something wrong with him. But Jung urged him to look deeper. It is not about desire, Jung told him. It is about your shadow. In Jung's theory, the shadow is the hidden side of the personality, the parts we repress or deny. For this businessman, his rival embodied qualities he rejected: boldness, aggression, and risk-taking. In life, he envied and hated these traits in others. In dreams, the unconscious forced him into union with them. The sexual act was not about lust. It was the psyche's way of demanding integration. To succeed, to grow, the man needed to embrace the energy he saw in his rival, rather than pushing it away. What seemed perverse was in fact symbolic, an image of inner reconciliation. Why sexual dreams shock us? Sexual dreams often disturb us because they break social rules. In every culture, sexuality is charged with taboos, boundaries, and expectations. Dreams cross those boundaries with ease. But Jung argued that this shock is intentional. The unconscious uses the most dramatic images possible to get our attention. If we repress creativity, the dream may present a stranger who seduces us. If we hide anger, it may appear as intimacy with someone we despise. If we deny tenderness, we may dream of being overpowered by it. The images are exaggerated not to shame us, but to awaken us. The unconscious does not care for social norms. It speaks in symbols that demand to be noticed. Anima and Animus, the hidden other within. Perhaps the most revolutionary idea in Jung's analysis of sexual dreams was his theory of anima and animus. Every man, Jung argued, carries within him a hidden feminine image, the anima. Every woman carries a hidden masculine counterpart, the animus. These archetypes shape how we relate to the opposite sex, but they also represent qualities missing in our conscious personality. In dreams, they often appear as lovers. A man might dream of a mysterious woman drawing him close. She is not just a fantasy, she is his anima, the embodiment of his emotion, intuition, and creativity. She calls him to recognize these neglected sides of himself. A woman may dream of an unexpected male partner. He is her animus, representing her logic, courage, and assertiveness. Through intimacy in dreams, the unconscious shows her what she must bring into her waking life. Jung wrote that these figures are bridges to the unconscious. By embracing them, we move closer to wholeness. A cultural context. To understand how bold this idea was, we must remember the world Jung lived in. The early 20th century was an era of rigid social morals. Sexuality was whispered about, covered with shame, or treated as mere biological instinct. Freud, Jung's mentor, shocked Europe with the claim that repressed sexuality fueled neuroses. But Jung went further. He said sexual dreams were not just about hidden lust. They were about something sacred, the drama of the soul striving for balance. To a society that preferred to keep sexuality in the shadows, this was radical. He was telling people that their most forbidden dreams were not sins, but symbols. Even today, When sex is less taboo in public conversation, Jung's message remains powerful. In a culture obsessed with external attraction, his theory reminds us that the deepest relationship we have is with ourselves. Another case, the woman and the stranger. Consider another of Jung's patients, a woman who dreamed she was seduced by a man she had never met. She described him as magnetic, overwhelming, and strangely familiar. At first, she felt guilty. She was happily married. Why would she dream of another man? Jung listened carefully. He explained that the stranger was her animus, the inner masculine calling for recognition. The qualities she saw in him, confidence, authority, decisiveness, were qualities she needed to strengthen in herself. The dream was not about betraying her marriage. It was about becoming whole. Lessons from the soul. When we look closely, the pattern is clear. Sexual dreams are rarely literal. They are symbols of integration. They confront us with the parts of ourselves we ignore: our shadow, our hidden opposite, our repressed desires for growth. Jung's genius was in teaching us to see beyond embarrassment or fear. He showed us that dreams of forbidden intimacy are not confessions of guilt, but invitations to transformation. As he famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." So, when you next wake from a dream that unsettles you, perhaps one filled with intimacy, you cannot explain, pause before you dismiss it. Ask yourself, what part of me is trying to speak? What qualities am I rejecting, yet secretly need? For Jung, this is the true meaning of sexual dreams. They are not about lust, they are about the soul, longing to become whole. Your sexual dreams are not secrets to be ashamed of. They are mirrors, reflecting the unseen parts of you. To listen to them is to begin the journey of self-discovery. The dark side of sexual dreams. A woman wakes trembling from a dream where she was forced into intimacy she never wanted. Another man wakes confused, having dreamed of a chaotic orgy filled with faceless strangers. Both carry the same fear. Does this mean I am secretly twisted? Carl Jung heard these fears often, and his answer was startling. Such dreams are not confessions of secret lust. They are the psyche's symbolic way of grappling with chaos, power, and transformation. The disturbing side of the unconscious. Not all sexual dreams are gentle unions of anima and animus. Some are violent, confusing, or grotesque. Jung understood that the unconscious does not censor itself. It throws images at us, shocking, sometimes terrifying, in order to break through our defenses. When sexuality appears in its darker forms, Jung argued, it often symbolizes overwhelming energy. This energy can destroy, but it can also renew. It is the raw force of life itself, the same energy that myths portray as both creative and destructive. In other words, the disturbing sexual dream is not about guilt. It is about power. Case study: the dream of violation. One of Jung's patients, a young woman, raised in a strict religious household, suffered recurring dreams of being assaulted. She hated herself for these dreams, convinced they revealed hidden desires. But Jung saw something else. He explained that in her waking life, she suppressed every instinct. She was obedient, passive, afraid of conflict. Her dreams, Jung suggested, were dramatizing the invasion of forces she refused to recognize: her own vitality and will. The assailant was a symbol of her repressed passion, crashing into her controlled, devout exterior. Painful as they seemed, the dreams were her unconscious trying to awaken her strength. When she began allowing herself to express anger, ambition, and creativity in daily life, the nightmares faded. The disturbing sexual imagery had not been about real violation, it had been the unconscious demanding liberation. The shadow at its fiercest. Jung often pointed to myth and religion to explain these dream patterns. Ancient myths are filled with gods who seduce, violate, or overwhelm mortals. These myths, Jung argued, are not literal, they are psychological dramas. Take Zeus, transforming into animals to seize lovers, or the storm gods who forced themselves on earth maidens. To Jung, these were archetypal images of the same energy that erupts in dreams, the overwhelming shadow. When we repress too much rage, creativity, sexuality, the shadow takes violent form. It appears in dreams not to condemn us, but to shock us into balance. Dreams of chaos. The orgy archetype. Another man told Jung of a dream in which he was swept into a wild orgy. He insisted this could not reflect his waking self. He was disciplined, almost ascetic. Jung smiled. The unconscious, he said, was correcting him. The dream was not an invitation to promiscuity, it was a symbolic revolt against his rigid control. The faceless lovers represented impulses he had buried: spontaneity, play, desire for community, even joy. By staging an orgy, the unconscious shattered his sterile self-image. The dream was absurd, even frightening, but its message was clear. Life cannot be contained forever in strict order. Cultural echoes. Dionysus and ecstasy. Jung often tied these dream images to cultural archetypes. He compared orgy dreams to the ancient cult of Dionysus, where Greeks worshipped the god of wine and ecstasy with wild dancing, music, and sometimes orgiastic rituals. To the Greeks, Dionysus was terrifying and divine, a force of madness and inspiration. Jung argued that when such figures appear in dreams, they symbolize the psyche's need to break free from control. Just as Dionysian rituals balance the discipline of Greek society, so too do wild sexual dreams balance the control of the waking self. Case study: the man and the forbidden partner. Another case involved a man who dreamed repeatedly of being intimate with someone of the same sex. This deeply disturbed him, as he did not identify as homosexual. Jung reassured him the dream was not about sexual orientation, it was about integration of the shadow. The partner symbolized the qualities the dreamer associated with men: strength, authority, independence, qualities he lacked in himself. The dream forced him into symbolic union with those traits, so he could embody them in life. This interpretation freed the man from shame. He began to see the dream not as an accusation but as guidance. Why the psyche uses sexual imagery. Jung believed sexuality appears in dreams because it is the most powerful image of union. Nothing else carries such intensity, such immediacy. To dream of violence, chaos, or forbidden partners is the psyche's way of dramatizing conflict so that we cannot ignore it. In a way, the psyche shocks us into self-examination. We wake unsettled, but we remember, and in remembering, we are forced to confront what lies beneath. A historical parallel: medieval dreams. Historians have recorded that in medieval Europe, many devout monks and nuns reported disturbing sexual dreams. They believed they were being tempted by demons. Jung, reading these accounts centuries later, saw another possibility. These were not demonic attacks, but the unconscious trying to balance extreme repression. By devoting themselves wholly to chastity, they suppressed natural vitality. Dreams erupted with violent, erotic imagery because the psyche demanded acknowledgement of life's other half. It was not a curse from outside. It was a message from within. Transformation through darkness. Jung never minimized how disturbing these dreams could feel, but he insisted that confronting them was essential. Until we make friends with the shadow, he said, we remain its victim. For Jung, the disturbing sexual dream was an invitation to transformation. It revealed not our hidden sins, but our hidden strength. The violence of the imagery showed how powerful the repressed energy was. And by recognizing it, by integrating it, we could become more complete human beings. The darkest sexual dreams are not confessions of hidden depravity. They are the unconscious forcing us to face the power we deny. If you meet chaos in dreams, see it as a symbol. Behind the violence lies the part of you that longs to be free. The sacred side of sexual dreams. In Carl Jung's research, there is a deeper layer of sexual dreams that few dare to enter: the spiritual dimension. Beyond instinct, beyond shadow, sometimes a sexual dream reveals the longing for union with the sacred. In these dreams, physical intimacy is not simply an act of desire. It becomes a symbol of cosmic wholeness, a hidden ritual of returning to the source. The archetype of hieros gamos, the sacred marriage. In ancient Greek mythology, there is a recurring motif: hieros gamos, the sacred marriage between a sky god and an earth goddess. This is more than just the joining of man and woman. It is the union of heaven and earth, consciousness and unconsciousness, the human and the divine. Jung saw sexual dreams with mystical undertones as echoes of this archetype. When we dream of uniting with a mysterious figure, often it is not about literal attraction. Instead, it is the symbol of our anima or animus, the hidden, opposite half of our psyche seeking integration with the self. Such dreams are not about lust. They are inner rituals, a sacred marriage within the soul. Case study: the priest's dream. Jung once analyzed the dream of a Catholic priest. In his dream, the priest found himself intimately united with a radiant woman he did not know. Horrified, he feared it was the devil's temptation. But Jung saw it differently. The radiant woman was not a devil, it was the priest's anima, the inner feminine that carries intuition, emotion, and creativity. The union was not sin. It was a symbolic ceremony. The priest's rigid masculine ego was being balanced by the feminine principle within him. What the church interpreted as temptation, Jung interpreted as a step toward wholeness. Mandala and union. In many dreams, Jung noticed that sexual imagery was followed by the symbol of a circle, a mandala. In Buddhism and Hinduism, the mandala is a sacred design representing spiritual unity. One woman told Jung that after dreaming of intimacy with a stranger, she saw a luminous circle rotating slowly in the sky. Jung explained, "The circle is the image of the self, the ultimate center of the psyche." Her dream suggested that the sexual act was not just instinctual, but a ritual of integration, where the ego dissolves into the greater whole. Cultural parallels: Tantra and Sufi mysticism. Across cultures, the idea of sexuality as a gateway to the divine is not rare. In Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism, tantric practice sometimes uses sexual union as a ritual. The joining of bodies mirrors the merging of opposites Shiva and Shakti, consciousness and energy leading to transcendence. In Sufi Islam, while not sexual in practice, the mystical poets often describe their longing for God in terms of erotic passion. Jalaluddin Rumi, the great Sufi poet, wrote verses where the beloved is both divine and sensual. Hafiz, too, spoke of being intoxicated by the wine of love. Jung saw in these traditions what he also found in dreams. Sexuality, when symbolic, becomes a metaphor for the soul's desire to reunite with the infinite. Another dream, the cosmic lover. A patient once told Jung of a dream in which she was embraced by a figure made of starlight. The sensation was both erotic and transcendent. She woke up trembling, but also filled with peace. Jung explained that this was not a mere fantasy. The dream revealed the archetype of the cosmic lover, a symbol of her psyche's yearning for transcendence. The body was a doorway, but the true union was between her consciousness and the deeper self. Such dreams remind us that desire itself is not the enemy. Desire, in symbolic form, points toward integration, transcendence, and meaning. The lesson of sexual dreams. So, what do we learn from all of this? First, that sexual dreams are rarely literal. They are metaphors, rich with symbolism, carrying messages from the unconscious. Dreaming of intimacy with a stranger, or even someone you dislike, is often not about that person at all. It is about an aspect of yourself that seeks recognition and integration. Second, that shame and fear often block us from hearing the deeper meaning. Just like the priest who thought he was sinning, many dismiss these dreams as immoral or dirty. But Jung invites us to see them differently, as the psyche's language of transformation. And third, that the most profound sexual dreams are not about the body, but about the soul. They are visions of union not just with another person, but with the opposite within us, with our hidden archetypes, and with the eternal self. In the end, sexual dreams are not windows into forbidden desires. They are windows into the soul. They show us that within every longing lies a deeper quest, the quest for wholeness, for balance, for unity with the sacred. Final message. When you next wake from a dream that unsettles you, do not rush to condemn it. Ask instead, what part of me was seeking union? What hidden voice was trying to be heard? Jung teaches us that even in our most intimate and confusing dreams, the soul is speaking. It is not lust that drives these visions. It is the eternal longing for wholeness. And perhaps, if we dare to listen, we will discover that our dreams are not just about desire. They are about the sacred mystery of being human.